Welcome to the 5th chapter of the book of Daniel. This book starts out with the name Valtasar. In the Greek, Valtasar, it says the Vasilevs, the king, made a great, deep-known supper. Well, the same person is Daniel. He has the same Aramaic name. Daniel's called Valtasar. You can check back on earlier, and Nebuchadnezzar gave him that name. And it's interesting because that was the name of Nebuchadnezzar, one of Nebuchadnezzar's sons, who apparently has become king, and Nebuchadnezzar has died. And there was another brother, Nabonidus, who was possibly also considered a king and part of the area. You can check all this out in Wikipedia. Between Nebuchadnezzar and the sons of Nebuchadnezzar and Cyrus the Great and Darius, there's a lot there, and I'm not doing a historical overview of the Middle East at this time, going through the Bible. But anyway, just wanted to point out, so it doesn't get too confusing, that Daniel and this king have the same name in Aramaic. So this king made a great supper for his megastasin, a mega. So you can see the megastasin, and there's the mega, great, the great for his great Andrasi, men. 1,000 kilis, we have a kilo comes from that, 1,000. And before the 1,000 was the enos. So this is a big supper, 1,000 people. Now, how long this supper went and how it proceeded, we don't know. We have a little bit of a hint here as we get in to this a little further, and it says, and of drinking, Baltasar spoke in the tasting of the inu to bring the items of Crisa and Ta Argira, or we have Argentina, comes from that, the country with a silver name, which Nabucodonosor, his father, Patir, brought forth from out of the temple in Jerusalem. So he has these gold and silver items that were in the Holy of Holies or in the holy place, and brought them in, and they started drinking. Later it calls this a potos, which is a drinking party, basically. So it turned in after the eating into a lot of drinking and partying. And it says, and they drank with them. Who did? The Vasilevs and the Megastanes and his Palake and his Parakite. The concubines is the Palake. The concubine would have been a woman that was like a secondary wife, and wasn't the first level wife to a magistrate or a magnate such as the king here. And the mistresses and his mistresses, they're more of a more closer to prostitutes. Parakiti means to lay, basically kiti is sexual intercourse, parakiti with it. The bed is called a kitis. And so this has to do more with the sex and the status with the concubine. But anyway, they brought the items of gold, crisa, and of silver, which were brought forth from out of the temple of God in Jerusalem, and drank with them the king and his great men and his concubines and his mistresses. They drank enon, wine, and they praised the gods of gold and of silver and of brass and of iron and of wood and of stones. So they were getting drunk, and they were praising their material wealth and the things, I don't necessarily know if it was actual gods, but the things of these materials that they were probably bragging about, these 1,000 people that were there, and very probably wealthy and important people within the realm of the kingdom of Babylon. In the same hour, ora, came forth dactyli hieros anthropu. Dactyli, we have fingers. The dactyl has to do with fingers. and dexterous in the hand of an anthropo man, and wrote over against the lampados upon the whitewashed portion of the wall of the house of the king. So they were all there, whoever was there, and there was a lamp on a white wall, and all of a sudden, fingers of a hand of a man came forth, and they could see this, and it started writing on the wall of the house of the king. And the Vasilevs viewed the knuckles of the hand writing. So he could see the knuckles, and he could see it. So he could see that when you're writing, you can see the back. It was writing. Then the morphe, the appearance, a morph of the king changed, of the Vasileos changed, and his dialogismi, dialogue, thoughts disturbed him, and the bonding together of his loin parted. Well, that means he wet his pants, urinated. So now to do that, and if you're a king in front of all these people, you'd have to be pretty scared, pretty frightened. Of course, drinking doesn't help it any. So this is what happened to the king, and his knees struck together. His knees are clunk, 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 and he's going to the bathroom in his clothes, and he's scared to death. And the king, Vasilevs, yelled in strength to bring the Magus and the Chaldeus and the Gazareneus, the astrologers. And he said to the Sophists, the wise ones of Babylon, whoever should read this writing, graphene, and should make known its interpretation to me, purple garments shall be put on him, and the necklace of chrysus of gold upon his trachelon, trachea is in part of the throat and the neck. And as tritos in te Vasiliamu he shall rule. So he's same as Nebuchadnezzar pretty much, going to give these items of worth to the person that could read these words, and a third in my kingdom, which leads some scholars to believe in classics that he was the third with Nabonidus, and I think Ahasuerus was another one. I'm not sure, but anyway, third in the kingdom. And entering Pontus e Sophie to Vasileos, all the wise ones of the king, and they were not able to read the graphene, nor to make known the interpretation to the Vasili. And the Vasilevs, Valtasar, was disturbed, and his appearance changed in him, and his great men were disturbed. So they were all changing from celebrating and getting drunk and having all these women and partying to all of a sudden something really shook him up. And the Vasilisa entered into the Ikon to Potu. The queen entered into the house of the banquet. This is a drinking party. Potus. I have a banquet, but it actually has to do with the drinking. Potable comes from that. And the Vasilisa responded and said, Vasilevs, live into the Aeona. Let not your thoughts disturb you, and let not your appearance be changed. There is a man in your kingdom in which is spirit of the holy God. This kind of reminds me of Pontius Pilate, where his wife came and Pilate was going to do something. He wanted to loosen Jesus. He was going through this hard time trying to make this decision, and his wife came and warned him not to do what he was going to do. And here the wife of this king is telling him not to worry, and she tells him about another man. And she says, and in the days of your patros, your father, Gregorius, and understanding in Sophia, as Sophia Theou, was found in him. In the days of your father. Now you can put this in your English derivatives book. Gregorius, we have Gregorius, comes from that. 1127.1. And understanding and wisdom with wisdom of God was found in him. And King Nebuchadnezzar, your father, placed him ruler of enchanters, of magi, of Chaldeans, and astrologers. He's the head of them all. For extra spirit is in him, extra pneuma, spirit, and intelligence and understanding of interpreting anipnea, dreams. Well, this wasn't a dream, but this is what she's telling him. And anangelon, reporting things held. There's the alpha, gamma, gamma. We had that before, reporting the things held, that like secrets or things that are hard to understand. And untying things bonded together, something that was purposely bonded and was not easy to read and understand because it was sort of sealed. It's Daniel. And the Vasilevs put to him the name Baltasar, same as yours. Now then, let him be called in its interpretation Anangeli to you. Then Daniel was brought in before the Vasileos. And the Vasileos said to Daniel, "Are you Daniel, the one from the sons of the captivity of Judea, of whom the king my father brought? I heard concerning you that spirit of pneuma of God is in you, and Gregoricis, and vigilance and understanding and extra wisdom is found in you." Well, he heard it because his wife came and told him. And now there entered before me the wise ones, the Sophie, Magi, astrologers, that they should read this graphene, and the interpretation they should make known to me, but they were not able to anangele me. And I heard concerning you that you are able to interpret judgments. And then, if you should be able to read this graphene and its interpretation to make known to me, well, purple garments shall be put on you, and the necklace of Croesus will be epiton trachylon su, and tritos inti Vasilea mu, you shall rule. Then answered Daniel and said before the king, "Let your gifts be yours, and the present of your house give to another. But I shall read the graphene to the Vasili, and the interpretation of it I shall make known to you." Vasilev, O king, Otheos, O king, the highest, God the highest, ipsistos, now we have to go back here, gave, one, the kingdom and the greatness, the Vasilian and the Megalocene, and the honor and the doxon to Nebuchadnezzar, your father, Patri. And because of the greatness, or from the greatness, Megalocenes, which, there's the mega, whenever you see mega, has something to do with great, big, strong, of which he gave to him, Pontus Olay, all the peoples, Philae, Glosse, were, there's the languages again, they're people's languages, not tongues, trembling and Phovumeni, fearing from before him. Well, they were all throughout the world because his armies were taking over all types of places and moving peoples around, and he was the ruler of the world. So yes, they were fearing and trembling. Whom he willed, he did away with, and whom he willed, he beat. He had all the power to kill anybody if he wanted to, and beat them, chastise them, however he wanted to do it. He was through the three wise men into the fiery furnace, and whom he willed, he raised up high. That would be Daniel. And whom he willed, he humbled. So he had all these powers. And when his heart was raised up high, cardia, heart, and his pneuma was fortified to be prideful, he was brought down from the throne of the kingdom, and the honor was removed from him. So he's being told, Baltasar, of what happened with his father and the reason why he was brought down. And Baltasar, I'm sure, knows the story. And from the Anthropon, he was driven out, and his cardia was given to be with the wild beasts and with the wild donkeys, among which he dwelt. And we read about that earlier. And horticulture, grass was fed him as an ox, and his body was dipped of the dew of the uranu, of the heaven. So he was in the open plains, just like animals, until of which he knew that God, the highest, ipsistos, dominated the kingdom of men. And to whomever it seems good, he gives it. So it's interesting because we recently had election in the United States, and democracy, everybody thinks, well, because you vote, then this is something really great, and that you're deciding who's going to run, and all your vote means all these things. Well, it really doesn't, because there are so many democracies that have voted for things that never came to pass, and electing a person that was a failure, and electing a person that was great, and they didn't know it, and electing somebody that completely destroyed their country, like Adolf Hitler. So, in the democracies were fairly recent, unless you go back into the republics of Greece, which just a certain amount of people did vote. And then who's put into these places? There's been kings. It's not heretical. Heretical. Then the kings and the sons and the sons and the sons and grandchildren become the kings. But a lot of them are really bad, terrible people. Just because one king was good doesn't mean the other ones are. And so all these rules of the world, God is in charge. He allows these things to happen. He designs it to happen, and it happens in the ways he allows. He put it in certain people's heart that are a bad people to discipline them, to elect somebody that will run that country that will do them harm. And if they're doing wonderful things, I think he'll bring somebody in that will bless them. And this was shown in the books of the kings in the Bible. And it continues, and you, his son, O Beltasar, humbled not your heart in front of God, of which all these things you knew. So this is the key here, I think, to this, is the knowing what's right and not doing it. He knew, he saw the things that were happening with his father. His father probably had a more humble spirit afterwards, and maybe the sons lost, I can't think of the word. They lost respect for the father and didn't do the things that he did. And now Baltasar is being humbled by God more than being humbled. And against the Lord God of heaven, you were haughty. Not only were you not humbled, you were haughty against who? God, the God of heaven. And the items of his house they brought before you, even you and your great men and your concubines and your mistresses drank wine in them. And the items of his house they brought before you, even you and your great men, and your concubines and your mistresses drank wine in them. And the gods of gold and of silver and of brass and of iron and of wood and of stones, the ones they see not and hear not and know not, you praised. So apparently they did have these different gods, and he's bringing up that they see not, they may have eyes in the idol, but they have ears on them, they don't hear, and they know not. And those are the ones that you praised, things that are made by God. And the God of whom your breath is in his hand, in all your ways, he's controlling everything about you, and we're all in the hands of God. It's a very fine string or a piece of twine or a thread that holds us alive. There's so many times I can remember that if it wasn't for one little bitty thing, I would be dead. Walking out in front of a car and certain things, stopping on a motorcycle, and all sorts of things. So falling down and not being killed, or I could have fell down off of a cliff, all kinds of things that God has control over. And he's in control of you, Baltasar. On account of this, the knuckle of a heros was sent at his presence, and his face in front of him. He sent it. And this graphene he arranged. It's all done by God for you. And for us today too, because we need to be that humble and know that God is in charge. I know people that they don't believe this at all. They think they have complete control. That's foolish. I mean, you don't have hardly any control. You do have control, but once you think that you're completely in control, bad place to be. And this is the graphi being arranged, and he reads these three words. Mani, this is Greek, mani, many, thekel, tekel, and phares, pares. Now, these three words apparently are Chaldean, because I looked up in Gesenius's the dictionary. I think it was Gesenius, and we see that it says Chaldean for these, and now whether they were in Hebrew and translated into Aramaic and Aramaic into Greek, I don't know. It's in Hebrew in the Bible, and but mene is apparently Chaldean. It means to number. In the Hebrew word, the Hebrew Strong's number is 4483, and that means to number, and to weigh, thekel, 23061, is in the Hebrew 8625. And the last one, phares, in the Greek, is 6537. It means to divide in the Chaldean. This is the interpretation of the saying. Mene, God measured or numbered your kingdom and finished it. Metri, a meter, measurement, your Vasilian. Thekel, it was set in the yoke balance scale and found lacking. That was weigh. The zygote is a derivative for that. And phares, your kingdom was, Vasilia was divided and given to the Medes, ke perses, divided, and that's what that phares means. It's number 6537, Gesenius, Strong's number. So it was given to the Medes and the Persians who lived to the east of Babylon and in what is called Iran today. Babylon would have been in what is Iraq today. So the kingdom was divided and given to these other people. And Belshazzar spoke, and they put on Daniel purple and the gold necklace. They put peri tontrakulon around his neck, periphery, peri has around, trakulon, and proclaimed concerning him for him to be the triton archonta triton, the third ruler in Vasilia. And in the same night, Valtasar, the king of the Chaldeans, was done away with. Now, how this all happened, history has different things and says different things. I'm not going into all these things of how that happened. Whatever, when night it was, how it was done. I don't know if it really matters, but I'm sure you can find things on Wikipedia about that if you're that interested in them. And Darius, Omethos, took the kingdom, being 62 years old. And Darius, now in between, I'm trying to think. Now Cyrus was in this period of time also, and I think Cyrus was after Darius. I'm not sure. You have to look all these, like I said, in the Wikipedia. I did, and I try to write and keep track of everything that's going on. If you read one about Darius, and they have this Darius 1, 2, 3, and all these different people named Darius, and then you go in to Valtasar, and his name is not necessarily the main son, who was Nabonidus. So, and then Cyrus, Kiru, we have more than one Cyrus. And now who was which Cyrus and which was which Darius is a good thing to study if you want to. And let me know and clue me in when you get it all straightened out. Chapter 6, we continue with now with Darius the Mede, the Persian or Iranian as it is today, and the things that happen with Daniel and the Persians rather than the Chaldeans and the Babylonians. Hope you'll join us in chapter 6 and learn what Daniel has to tell us. And God bless.